My name is Pink and I really like to meet you. You're recommended to me by some people.
All the best people are crazy. All the best people are.
What's up, crazies? My name is Jessie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am a digital and media engineer, also known as a conforming artist, who's been working the last couple of years in film post-production and who can tell you a lot about how movies are made and what to notice while watching them. On May 16th, Apple TV released the first few episodes of its new hit sci-fi series, MURDERBOT, based on the books by author Martha Wells. The final episode was released on July 11th, and this book-to-movie adaptation is so good that we have to talk about it. Quick little PSA, don't worry, I'm still watching Ginny and Georgia. This was just more present, and I wanted to insert it between our Ginny and Georgia watch, but the next episodes are coming in 2 weeks, so don't worry, I haven't forgotten. This is just a quick little intermission, so to say. MURDERBOT takes place in a science fiction world. Humanity has occupied various different planets, and a cross-planet civilization has become normalcy. Most of the humans live in a high-paced, highly technically developed society called the Corporation Rim, with the exception of a few colonies who despise capitalist morals and who live a more technically primitive lifestyle. But not only has technology advanced, so has artificial intelligence. Most of the world runs on the back of bots, service bots, entertainment bots, security bots, and many more variants. Our main character is a so-called sec unit, a security bot whose obligation it is to be a security guard in various different places and ensure the safety of its clients. This could be mine workers in their dangerous workplaces or scientists doing research on foreign planets with dangerous inhabitants. But this particular sec unit somehow managed to hack its government module and is technically under no obligation to listen to humans anymore. Because with a government module, a bot always has to take orders from the human, do what they say, and never refuse them. But it forces itself to act normal because it does not want to be found out as rogue, because if it was found out as rogue, it would be melted down for parts. Coincidentally, this sec unit is paired with a research team from a colony called Preservation that has chosen a more primitive, peaceful way of living to be their sec unit on a foreign planet and ensure their safety during their research of said planet. And thus, the shenanigans begin. Final little spoiler warning, I will be talking about the ending and character developments, etc. So if you haven't watched MURDERBOT, pause, go watch it, and then come back right here and continue watching and tell me all of your opinions in the comments down below. Let's dive in. This show is a blockbuster. It is epic and thrilling in every way. And what underlines this is the show's aspect ratio. They used CinemaScope, the anamorphic widescreen ratio. CinemaScope is often used to convey the movie feel. It's so immersive because it shows a lot of the landscaping left and right of the characters in the frame. It also has a very cinematic feel to it in establishing or landscaping shots and is very captivating for the viewers as they are shown more of the world in this wide-angled shot. In addition to that, they also used anamorphic lenses. Now, I wasn't able to find out what kind from what company, but you can definitely tell that they used anamorphic lenses, and here is why. An anamorphic lens compresses an image horizontally, making the field of view seem wider than it actually is. This just adds to the entire aesthetic of the series. The trick when using anamorphic lenses is to be able to fill the picture without making it feel staged or too crowded, and at the same time also making sure it's not empty looking, because you can just see more of the set in every single shot compared to the 16:9 widescreen ratio. The MURDERBOT set designers did a fantastic job with this. They always made sure something was there. No shot feels empty or as if something is missing. It all feels dynamic and full without being too crowded. Due to the lenses used, I am noticing a few lens aberrations here and there. You can notice them if you look very closely at the edges of areas where light drastically changes from dark to light. If there is a change in color there, like a green shine or a red shine, that is technically not supposed to be there. That is a lens aberration. These can happen when the rays of light passing through the lens fail to converge at a single point. It's basically an imperfection in the lens the way it focuses light. This would be a technical mistake because technically the change in color shouldn't be there, and if I was the QC operator, I would have to mark it as a mistake and let the producers or directors or whoever know that, hey, we have a lens aberration here. However, I'm noticing in recent years that it's becoming more and more of a trend to use these lens aberrations as a stylistic choice, as I assume it was done here. Many directors and cinematographers have started to use this technical faultiness to their advantage to create a more aesthetically interesting picture. Something else I noticed is that in the show, they play a lot with typical camera styles, angles, movements, like the Dutch angle or the vertigo effect, so much so that it could almost feel like an overuse, but they use it in such a subtle way that you almost don't notice how often they are being used. In episode 1, for example, we have a small, subtle vertigo effect happening when Dr. Menza comes into Murderbot's room where he is repairing himself after the attack of that earthworm creature. Dr. Menza asks him if he's alright and tells him that he did a good job with Dr. Arada when he comforted her on their way back to the hub. That is all she says. But Murderbot fears that she knows he's real because he took his mask off when he was comforting Dr. Arada, which a normal bot doesn't do. And so he panics. You can hear it in his thoughts, but you can also see it because they use a vertigo effect for emphasis too. The vertigo effect, named after Alfred Hitchcock's film Vertigo, where he popularized this film technique, involves moving the camera either closer or further from the subject while simultaneously zooming in or out with the lens. This results in the subject remaining the same size while the background appears to either expand or contract, creating a sense of unease or distortion. In this case, it is a very subtle vertigo effect, but what it is trying to underline is his panic. Oh no, she just realized I'm rogue. Which she's not at all. She doesn't realize this in much later episodes. But because of the way the camera is moving, it feels like she knows more than she's leading on. But this is all in Murderbot's POV. She literally just came in there to thank him for saving her and her team. That's it. That's all she wants. And her intentions are underlined when the camera snaps back into the exact same position it was before, where she's just standing in front of him and talking normally to him. Genius! Incredible use of camera technique. Subtle, but very effective.
The rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon.
I absolutely love that the creators of the show actually filmed this fictional TV show and made excerpts of it so we can watch and enjoy it together with Murderbot. And there is so much to talk about here too. One of my favorite things in the show is how Murderbot relates everything that he does to the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon. He not only takes patterns and behaviors of characters in the show and tries to mimic them, he also takes their dialogue and directly quotes it in real life in the hopes of sounding normal.
Stay calm. It'll be okay. You have my word.
Stay calm. It'll be okay. You have my word.
This is so hilarious and it makes him even more lovable and honestly very relatable because I also quote my favorite TV shows all the time. Friends, B99, Avatar. I mean, you know, I use memes from my favorite shows in my videos all the time.
I should have downloaded more shows.
Me when I drive anywhere with Deutsche Bahn. By watching the show all the time, he's using it to try and make sense of the humans around him. He doesn't want them to catch on that he hacked his government module. So he uses the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon as like a guide to human interactions and behavior, how to react, what to say, what not to say, how to think.
I'm a human. I'm a human male.
But since he is a robot, he doesn't understand that this show is a complete exaggeration of all of the above and that no one really talks or acts like that. When you do a side-by-side comparison of the rise and fall of Sanctuary Moon and our reality, parallels are fascinating. Because on its own, this TV show is completely over the top. That show uses a lot of extreme camera angles and movements. The colors are highly saturated and the acting is very extra. There is no subtlety here. Everything is in your face. It's like a sci-fi soap opera. But to Murderbot, it's the best television he's ever seen.
Premium quality show.
It is not even a premium quality show.
Agree to disagree.
Now, if we compare the stylistic devices used in the Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon with our reality, you can actually see how they use a lot of the same techniques in the real world, but just in a more subtle kind of way. We also have camera movements and techniques, like, for example, that vertigo effect in real life. We have typical color contrasts like blue and orange being used a lot. The camera also lingers on the characters' faces to convey their emotions. We have visual effects and built sets on both sides. Bottom line, the Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon and the Murderbot reality make use of the exact same stylistic devices, camera angles, color techniques, and visual effects. Their only difference is their execution. This show is a fantastic example of how the same techniques can be used for two entirely different outcomes. I think anyone who wants to study film should pay close attention here, because this is such a great learning opportunity. It doesn't need much, you just really have to know what you're doing and when to be subtle about it and when to be in your face about it, depending on what kind of reaction or feeling you want to convey or trigger in the viewer. It's difficult to do that and to know when to do what, but they nailed it. I love the contrast between the Rise and Fall of Sanctuary Moon and its extreme, obvious overuse of stereotypical camera angles and movements and colors, and then our series' subtle use of the exact same stylistic devices. It's almost as if Murderbot, applying so much from the show to his life, somehow spilled over to the real camera, as if the show even influenced that. Many times, I had the urge to punch every single one of that researcher team, because on that planet they seem to know nothing of teamwork or common sense. So often, everyone thought they should be the hero. They would go off on their own, not listening to each other, and especially not to their security unit, who warned them on multiple occasions to not do what they then ended up doing anyways, and things got, surprise, surprise, dangerous, and sometimes people even got hurt. But then, the way each and every one of them tried to connect with Murderbot or to try and figure him out what he's like, that was so endearing. I loved how Dr. Menza always tried to reach out to Murderbot, treating him like a human rather than a bot. This of course completely overwhelmed our little Murderbot, but it set him off on a path of letting go of some of his hatred towards humanity, because he grew up in the corporation room. Just like Garathan, he was always surrounded by horrible humans. Humans who tortured him, treated him like trash, and only used him for their own personal gain. They regarded him as a machine and disregarded his feelings. And the more time Murderbot spends around the research team, the more he comes to like them. He's loyal to them not because he has to be, but because he wants to be. Same with the research team themselves. The more he is around, the more they slowly start to trust him. And in the end, when their mission is over, I love how they all come together to save him. Especially Garathan's character arc is really heartwarming. He went from complete distrust and wanting to get rid of Murderbot to being the one to bring Murderbot back by returning his memories to him. In the end, he's the one who completely understands what Murderbot is truly like, what he is, who he is. By having all of Murderbot's memories in his head, he finally understands. And his view on Murderbot completely changes, like he does a 180 on him. And he has a connection with him unlike anyone else on the team, which is why even though they saved Murderbot, and bought his contract so they could bring him back home to preservation, he lets Murderbot leave because he knows Murderbot needs to taste freedom. He needs to make his own choices. Even though it is hard letting go of a newfound friend, he knows this is what Murderbot needs for now. And honestly, I cried at the ending. When we see Murderbot leave, while he narrates that this is what he needs, even if it means leaving his favorite human behind, that broke me. Oh, that broke me. Alexander Skarsgård plays small emotions so freaking well. He never says much, but especially at the end, it's all written on his face. His performance really lands and it hits hard. Speaking of Garathan and subtle acting, this is clearly an extremely traumatized individual. We don't know much of his past, except that he had a severe drug addiction that Dr. Menza saved him from, and that he grew up in the exact same environment that Murderbot did. But his mistrust, especially towards Murderbot, is a clear indicator that something really bad happened in his past. Also, his trauma is written all over his face. David Asmosian plays this so extremely well. It's like his past is in his eyes, and every time he looks at Murderbot, he's reminded of what happened to him. It's like Murderbot is a walking trigger for all of his past, all of his traumas, everything he's trying to overcome. And of course, it makes him hate this sec unit even more. But because of exactly this hatred, the ending where he does this complete 180 on Murderbot is even more impactful and meaningful and touching. He went from hatred to understanding, from disgust to empathy, from trauma trigger to friend. So many shows with an expressly autistic character make them very stereotypical. They are socially awkward, always only talk about math, they stand out and are oftentimes very annoying, and the autistic community does not feel like that character represents them well, understandably. Why Murderbot captures the feeling of having autism so much better, though, is because it demonstrates the subject of masking really well. Neurodivergent people are a minority, and they are different from the crowd, but they don't want to be. So in reality, they mask. They try to hide the fact that their brains work differently and try to be normal. They also desperately want to fit in, but can't because they are so different and their brains work differently than normal brains. Murderbot captures that feeling perfectly. The despair, the anxiety of trying to act like a human, but then people looking at you weird and you then feeling bad at being human. Also, the discomfort of social interactions, practicing them beforehand, copying social interactions you've witnessed, like Murderbot and his TV show, and applying those to your life. The discomfort of looking people in the eye.
That's not so bad.
It was so bad.
It's very relatable. Murderbot is such a great metaphor for neurodivergence. Because we can relate to thoughts like, am I human? Am I a bot? Or am I just faulty equipment? I've mentioned a few times before that I absolutely hate voiceover, especially when it's being used as a crutch just to give us exposition. But just like in the show You, also did a video, so go watch that. We need the voiceover because it's like an extra character. It gives us an insight into the main character's thoughts that you cannot achieve with only the show. You need the tell. But the tell is told so well that it makes the show even more enjoyable and funnier. The stark contrast between what Murderbot is perceiving versus what actually is happening, especially when it comes to social interactions, is just incredibly hilarious. And it makes it more interesting, funnier, and creates more tension. It is also the best way of showing what Murderbot is like, how he functions, how he thinks. Through the voiceover, we are able to build a connection with Murderbot. If he was just standing there silently, we would feel distant from him and he wouldn't make sense to us. We would feel as clueless as the research team who was trying to figure him out but unable to know him because we wouldn't know what he was thinking and thus wouldn't know what he was truly like. So there's actually so much showing and not telling despite the voiceover in the show, and there are a lot of things left for us to notice and see for ourselves. This series feels like it needs more of it. It is basically sci-fi humor mixed with a lot of action, and I love it. The mission of Murderbot and his team seems simple enough, but then they notice discrepancies in their maps, are getting attacked by the wildlife of the foreign planet and then also other sec bots, and it quickly turns into a highly dangerous mission. If the series focused solely on that, the team figuring out the truth, it would be incredibly boring. What gives the story life and charm is the characters, the naivete of the research team. Their way of life and how they interact with each other is unusual, and it adds a bit of excitement to the story. But of course, the highlight of it all is seeing it through Murderbot's POV. His thoughts, his sarcasm, his struggles of trying not to get found out as Rogue, the way he sees the world and the people around him is so refreshing and funny. It makes the story interesting. Because he also doesn't know what is going on, but he has to figure it out with these, in his words, incompetent weirdos, and they all realize they are part of something bigger than themselves, which they don't understand yet. But they have to work together to discover the truth, and the team dynamic and tension between Murderbot and the research team adds more layers to the plot and makes it more interesting. Also, the pacing didn't feel rushed. I was rather always upset when the episode ended and I had to wait another week for the next one to come out. It was also never boring. Something interesting was always going on, but it wasn't too much or too little. It was the perfect balance between moving the story along and making space and time for character development and world building. This story is a compelling plot wrapped in endearing, hilarious characters with charm and thrill, and encapsulates both mystery and humor, and I want more of it. Oh, I poked my finger because of this. Because so many sci-fi things are just dystopian, serious, boom boom fight action, blah 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 type of thing. Honestly, we've seen enough of those. Let's make more things like Murderbot. Finally, let's talk about the book versus adaptation. Now, this is from my sister who has read the books. I still have to read them. But she says the series feels like an extended version of the book. They added in everything from the books and even made more space for the side characters. They really fleshed those characters out, and we know even more about them than we know from book 1 of the Murderbot series. This is interesting because one of the main criticisms the books in the Murderbot series has received is that the side characters feel flat and don't really have enough personality, even if that gets better as the series goes on. So not only did they do the book and its plot justice, they also ensured that every character was included and given space to exist fully. When I watch a show, one of the most important things to me are the feelings it creates in me when I watch it, because once I've finished watching them, those feelings are what stay with me. Murderbot has all the right ingredients. This show was touching, sweet, even wholesome in a way. It was funny, exciting, and interesting too. You have these hippies with humane morals who encounter this AI who grew up around people who treated it like an object and trashed its entire life. This contrast is so entertaining because two opposite worlds collide and are forced to work together. And somehow they manage to make it work. And not only that, they grow fond of each other, even save each other's lives. Watching Murderbot, who has never known kindness in his life, be met with a group of people who see him as an equal, encounter care, sacrifice, even love, is so moving, and it makes the ending where Murderbot leaves even more bittersweet. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of Murderbot. Have you read the books, and do you think they made the story justice? Who's your favorite character, and what was your favorite plot twist? Let me know all of that in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, but also to my second channel, Jessie Grace, where I am starting out as an indie musician. Turn on notifications to never miss an upload and all the amazing content coming your way. Stay crazy. See you in 2 weeks. Bye!
This sec unit keeps quoting things from Sanctuary Moon.
Crappy show?
Crappy? How about you try to make 2,797 episodes of premium quality entertainment? Oh well. If those were my last words, I stand by them.